Yo, what's up guys, hope you guys are doing good. So today we are gonna see, what if Naruto was reborn as fallen angel, part 1. Hope you'll enjoy this video. So before we start, please subscribe to our channel and like this video. So let's get into the video. Pain. That is all Naruto felt as he plummeted deeper and deeper into the endless void of Kagaya's portal. He could scarcely remember how it all happened, even if it had only occurred a few moments. The extent of the pain his body was going through was so great that he couldn't even hear the voices of the tailed beasts inside of him calling out for him. From what little he remembered, he knew that they had managed to seal away Kagaya. That he was certain of. However, with the last bits of her power, she managed to push him though one last portal, or rather most of him, as his left arm hadn't been able to pass through before the gate closed on it. Without a master to control it, the portal was left without a proper exit, leaving the sole inhabitant of the void no means of escape, as far as he knew. The conditions of the dimension were slowly becoming more and more inhospitable to him. His clothes had already been ripped apart and his skin was now starting to vaporize. Using the last of his strength, he was able to open his eyes enough to see a small light far from him, yet slowly coming closer to him. All he could do was smile and hope his body held out to come out alright. And with that, Naruto's life as a human ends. The blonde's corpus fell until it finally reached the light. Azazel was having a pretty bad day. He had just found out that more of his agents had gone rogue and joined a group called the Cows Brigade. His already small and weakened faction was slowly dwindling away as more of his brothers and sisters were lost in battle against devils. Normally this would go against the treaty set in place during the last Great War, but unfortunately it was almost always his men who started the conflict. The fallen angel was brought out of his thoughts as the area in front of him exploded in a mesmerizing burst of light. Being forced to avert his eyes, he couldn't quite see what was going on, but once the light faded, he was able to see a teen on the soft grass of the park he was in. The blonde teen was wearing nothing, but he could see that the body had suffered large amounts of damage and had even lost an arm. As he walked over, he saw that while the body seemed to be human, it had an incredible amount of power within him. Lastly, noticing the lack of movement of the blonde's chest, he assumed that he had died. Azazel hummed as he crouched next to the corpus. He could feel the power within the teen doing everything in its power to preserve the body and maybe even revive its host. It was unlike anything he had ever felt before. The energy inside the body could only be compared to that of the yokai, yet this was far more potent and felt complete. If he had to compare this boy's energy to that of the yokai, it would be placed on a whole new level. While the senjutsu and yujutsu some like the Nekomata could use were powerful, the body's power made it seem like a lake compared to an ocean. Just as he was about to decide to stop wasting time on an already dead human, an idea struck him. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a small midnight blue orb. I think this might be the best opportunity I have to test this. I hope this works. He said, smirking as he pushed the orb deep into the blonde's blood-covered chest. He couldn't help but laugh in joy as a massive magic circle-looking seal appeared under the blonde. He jumped out of the range of the seal before it erupted into a column of black light with golden sparks dancing around both within and out of the pillar. The black light faded away. The teen's body, which at one time was lifeless, now had the steady movement that signified breathing. The blonde's body had been nearly completely restored minus the severed arm. I can't believe that actually worked. Azazel said to himself as he patted himself on the back for a job well done. Walking over to the formerly dead body, he felt the power within the body growing larger by a decent margin. Well, better take him to a place to rest and see what I can do about his arm, he said as he picked up the blonde teen. Out of his back, 12 jet black wings sprouted before he took off into the air. Some time later, Naruto's eyes slowly opened to find himself in an unknown bedroom. The place looked like it belonged to someone with an above-average amount of wealth back in Konoha. He couldn't help but let out a yawn which he covered with his left hand. Wait, my left hand? He thought before the memories of the end of his battle with Kagaya rushed back to him. I lost my arm. How do I still have it? He muttered as he looked over the limb. It looked exactly like I did before the portal closed and severed it. Like it? A masculine voice asked. Looking up, he saw a tall man he had never met before. The man had black hair with blonde bangs and violet eyes. At the moment he wore a black v-neck and gray pants. You better be thankful. I had to use a lot of resources to get you up to this point, the man said as he walked over to Naruto's bedside and sat down on one of the chairs. Naruto narrowed his eyes on the man. What do you mean? Where are we? Who are you and what did you do to me? Naruto asked the strange man, who chuckled at the rapid-fire questions the blonde teen was asking him. Oh, slow down, kid. The man stopped Naruto's stream of questions. To start things off, my name is Azazel, may I get your name? The now named Azazel asked Naruto, who was still studying him. None of his senses were telling him not to trust the man in front of. Even the empathy ability he gained from Kurama didn't detect anything. Sorry, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. It's nice to meet you, Azazel. Naruto said to the man who smiled at the blonde who didn't seem to use any honorifics like most people seem to use in the region they were currently in. The pleasure is all mine. As for what I meant by using resources on you, I should explain to you the condition you were in when I found you. Azazel said as he cleared his throat a bit. Naruto waited for the man, slightly annoyed that he seemed to be taking his time. You were dead. Azazel finally said. Naruto's jaw dropped when the three words that formed the sentence reached his ears and were processed by his brain. Dead? He asked out in shock before looking over his body one last time to see if anything was different. So is this the afterlife? He asked the purple-eyed man. Azazel laughed at the boy's reaction to hearing that he died. From what he had observed, it wasn't really that rare for one to think that way. Nope. I used an item I created to revive you as a member of my faction. The man said to the blonde who tilted his head to the side, showing that he didn't understand what he meant. I meant that I gave you another chance at life by turning you into a fallen angel. The man with golden bangs explained to Naruto. What a fallen angel? Naruto asked Azazel. He had never heard of this faction the man spoke of, nor had he ever heard of a fallen angel before in this life. Azazel sighed as he pinched the bridge of his nose. It seemed that the team before him had no prior knowledge of what he was talking about. A fallen angel is an angel that fell from the grace of God and was casted out of heaven. This only seemed to further confuse the blonde. Sure, he had heard of words such as God and angel from his encounter with Nagato and Conan, but he never heard them spoken of in the way the strange man spoke of. It seemed that the more Azazel explained to him, the more confusing it all became due to the added layers of information. I don't follow. By God, do you mean like the Shinigami? Naruto asked the fallen angel who looked like he wanted to slam his head into a wall. Okay, I guess I'll explain everything, Azazel said before giving the blonde a quick history lesson of the past between heaven, hell, and the Grigori. To say that all that information was a lot to take in was an understatement, but even then Naruto managed to wrap his head around it. So basically I died, and you turned me into a fallen angel in order to revive me? Naruto said in a questioning tone, asking for confirmation that what he said had been correct. Azazel smiled and nodded his response, which prompted the blonde's head to drop. So am I correct to assume that whatever you did to me restored my arm as well? Nope. Azazel said as he reached over and pressed a button that blended in with Naruto's skin that caused the back of his hand to lift up, revealing a gun barrel. In order to get your arm back, I had to use my knowledge on the sacred gears I told you about before to create a prosthetic one. I even added a few features like a light gun and a few other fun ones. He said as he clicked another button, causing the hand to shoot out with a wire attached to the back out and punch through the wall Naruto was facing. Azazel grimaced at the sight of the new hole in his wall. I'm going to have to fix that. Whoa. Naruto said as his new robotic hand returned to him. It looked completely natural and he could even control it like a real one. However, when he touched it with his right hand, he felt the metal his arm was made of. This is awesome. He yelled out as he tried to figure out if the arm had any other secrets. I know, right? Now back to your questions. I guess I already answered almost all of them minus where we are. Azazel said, rubbing his goatee. Well, we are currently in one of my houses in Kuo. Well, now that you know what's going on, I wish to extend to you the offer to join me. As a fallen angel, you wouldn't really be popular with devils and angels. Of course, I would personally train you, especially with the amount of power you're giving off. Azazel said to the blonde who thought about the offer. From what he had heard, he wouldn't even be able to live in human society since he had no way of identifying himself nor making any sort of money. On top of that, he couldn't contact any of the within him at all, and his chakra had changed due to the transformation he had recently gone through. Well, it's not like I have many options. Naruto thought to himself with a heavy sigh. I accept your offer, Azazel. Naruto said as he held out his hand. The governor of the fallen angels smiled widely as he took the blonde's hand firmly and shook it. He knew he hadn't made a mistake when he decided to bring Naruto back to life. He only had one of those blasted things made so far, and even then it was still a prototype he made using a stolen evil pieces. Getting more of them to make any more was easier said than done. Then let's be off. He yelled before dropping an outfit that looked just like his on Naruto's lap. Get dressed. He said before leaving the blonde by himself. I can't believe I may never get to see them again. Naruto thought to himself as images of all his friends flashed through his head and ended with Hinata, where his mind lingered for a bit before they faded away. His hands clenched the sheets as a few tears fell from his eyes. He couldn't imagine living without all of them, to never see them again. To never share a laugh with them again. Lastly was his dream to become Hokage. While it wasn't anywhere near as important to him as his friends, it still hurt him knowing his life goal was now out of reach. He looked at his hands. He had nothing to even connect them to him. Not even a single picture or memento. All he had left of them was the memories he made with them. However, another part of him told him that they wouldn't want him to simply wallow in their memory. Standing up from the bed he dressed himself in the clothing Azazel had given him and left the room. Leaving the room he found Azazel preparing some food in the kitchen. Naruto walked over to the man to see what he was making. He found that he was making some strange kind of meat formed into strips and eggs. Azazel noticed Naruto's presence next to him and smirked, strange what the humans of this world come up with. We never had things like this in heaven. The fallen angel said. Yeah. Naruto said, still a little depressed that he could never see his friends again. He didn't know many time-space ninjutsu that weren't related to seals. If he had something like the Kamui or Kagaya's Yamatsu Hirosaka, he may have been able to discover a way back, but he didn't even know Hiraishin. Azazel looked at the blonde with a sad smile, he could understand what he was going through to a degree. He too was forced to leave his home when he sinned and left behind a few people he cared about. Well Naruto, the food is about ready now. He said, as he picked up both pans from the oven top and split the food into 2 portions. Walking over to table the governor of fallen angels set down 2 plates and sat down in front of one of them. Well you better start eating before it gets cold. He said before he started to eat himself. Naruto walked over to the table and sat in front of the other plate. Looking at the food curiously he picked up a piece of the meat and sniffed it a few times. Not sensing anything wrong with it he placed it in his mouth and started to eat. It's good. Not as good as ramen, but still good. Naruto commented as the two ate in silence. Well once we're finished here I'll start your training. Azazel said leaving the table. Naruto finished shortly and walked after the man. I guess the first thing we should do is learn just how much power you have. The fallen angel said as he led the blonde down a door into a massive underground training area. Naruto's jaw hung a bit loose as he looked around at the ever-expanding area. The entire place looked like a massive mountain range that extended far beyond the limits of his eyes. Looking back at the door they had passed through he just saw nothing. What the hell? Naruto asked as he picked up one of the rocks to see if it was all real. It didn't take long before he was able to confirm that the entire place was in fact a real place. It even had nature energy for him to absorb. Nice right. Took me forever to create the machine to make this possible. Azazel said to the blonde who looked at the man as he allowed his wings to come out of his back. Naruto took a step back at the sudden appearance of the 12 black wings that came out of Azazel's back. Azazel smirked at the face Naruto was making at the side of his wings. An angel's wings are a way of indicating how powerful they are. One can range from a single pair which is the weakest to 6 pairs like mine which is the highest rank. Now don't be sad if he wasn't able to finish as Naruto decided to try and summon his wings. 12 jet black wings bursted out of Naruto's back just like they did from the older man's a few moments ago. 12. Azazel yelled out. Naruto laughed a bit and scratched the back of his head. After he saw the wings he wanted to check how he compared to the man who gave him a second chance at life. It almost felt natural to him. It was like flexing his walking or flexing an arm, it felt like a part of his body. I'm guessing this is a good thing. Naruto asked the man who had quickly regained his composure. Good? This is great. Azazel said as he counted the amount of wings Naruto had just to make sure he wasn't just seeing things. This was far beyond what he had expected. He had thought that it would have been something similar to what happened to a reincarnated devil which rebirthed them as a low-level devil. I never really expected this, however I believe the best way to test one's power is through battle. Azazel said, getting into a stance. Naruto smiled and retracted his wings. As cool as they looked he had no idea how to use them, nor did he know how they would affect his fighting. Started off by summoning over a dozen clones. Azazel's eyes widened at the sudden appearance of the multiple copies of the reincarnated fallen angel. To Naruto nothing really felt any different other than feeling stronger overall. He could feel a second form of energy inside of him that wasn't chakra mixing into his chakra system, making his already powerful chakra even stronger and denser. Azazel ducked under one of the clone's punches and kneaded it in the stomach hard enough to destroy it. 2 other clones honed in on him. The elder fallen angel flew back as one of the clones tried to kick his legs out from under him while the other one tried to kick his face. Before he could destroy them 3 more clones came from behind. 3 spears made out of light appeared and pierced through the clone's stomach before they could reach him. The 2 clones he had dodged before attempted to attack once again. Both were quickly destroyed by 2 quick punches from Azazel. I have to admit I never expected you to have something like this. The governor of the Grigori said to Naruto before kicking in another clone into one of the mountains. The real Naruto came out from behind the fallen angel and slammed a Rasengan into Azazel's back. The fallen angel went flying away from the group of clones by the force of the attack. Azazel stabilized himself in midair and waved his hand, sending several spears at the group of Narutos. The mass wave of spears of light was able to destroy every single clone left. I hope that didn't kill him. Azazel said jokingly before Naruto appeared next to him. Crossing his arms, Azazel was able to block Naruto's kick which sent him only a few feet back. Another spear appeared in Azazel's hand which he used to block Naruto's. Wielding the spear like a staff, he knocked away Naruto's hand and hit the blonde on the left side of his face, sending him into a large boulder. I admit that the attack you hit me with before hurt, but you're going to try harder if you want to beat me. Azazel taunted the blonde who stood up from the rubble. The old nine-tailed beast smirked as he wiped a drop of blood from the corner of his lips. The hit to the face was comparable to one of his teammate Sakura's punches. I'm going to make you regret those words. Naruto said, entering his Rakuto Senin mode. Azazel raised an eyebrow at Naruto's transformation. The clothing he had given the blonde had been completely replaced by a light-colored coat with a dark-colored bodysuit underneath that covers his torso that reached down his arms to the knuckles, down his legs, and stopped just above his sandals, which also changed color to a golden orange. It also had a light-colored circle where his navel would have been, as well as golden magatama markings around his collar. On the back of the coat was the image of a stranger with 4 rings around a dot above 9 magatama. His eyes had changed so that instead of being blue, they were yellow with a cross-like pupil. The 6 whisker markings on the blonde's face became thicker and now resembled rectangles. Naruto's hair was glowing the same color as his coat and had 2 horn-like. Behind him were 6 small black orbs. Naruto vanished from sight in a burst of speed and appeared in front of Azazel with a black rod in hand. The fallen angel sidestepped the attack and tried to pierce Naruto through chest with his spear, only for Naruto to push it out of the way with the palm of his left hand and kick Azazel into a mountain. The rock surface cracked under the force of the collision, but the kick wasn't enough to seriously hurt Azazel. Now that hurts. Azazel said before flying at Naruto, who flew into the air to avoid the incoming attack. Taking off into the air after the blonde, Azazel flew behind the blonde who was slowly getting farther and farther away from him. Get back here. Azazel yelled as he fired several spears of light at the flying blind. Naruto stopped flying and used one of the black orbs behind him to form a shield which blocked the hail of attacks. Azazel flew past Naruto and drew a sword made out of pure light. The energy-covered blonde formed a black staff from one of the spheres behind him and charged at the black-winged angel. The 2 weapons collided with enough force to shatter some of the mountaintops. Azazel felt the bones in his arms crack from the force behind Naruto's attack, while Naruto was relatively fine. The two fought for dominance for a few seconds before Naruto overtook him and knocked him back. Naruto formed it in his right hand before firing it at the fallen angel. Azazel only had time to cover himself in his wings before the attack detonated on him. The black orb exploded in an explosion large enough that it damaged the surrounding mountains. Naruto was forced to cover himself in a spherical shield made from one of the Gudadama to avoid being injured by his own attack. Once the attack ended, Naruto floated inside the barrier in the middle of a massive crater. A few meters in front of him was Azazel, who despite using his wings to protect himself, had taken a large amount of damage compared to before, leaving him covered in a few burns. You little bastard. Azazel said, chuckling, as he wiped off dust from his arm. Well, times for the kid gloves to come off. Azazel said, summoning a spear in each hand and charged at the blonde. Naruto formed 2 short staffs from his Gudadama and flew towards the incoming fallen angel. The 2 attacks collided with one another. Naruto spun with the intent of knocking off the head of his savior, but Azazel managed to react in time and ducked under the attack and jabbed forward. The 2 clashed a few more times. Each time they traded blows at speeds where they almost left after images. Azazel was the one to break off, as he was taking far more damage from Naruto's much stronger attacks. Naruto flew back and turned both of the staff back into their original forms and raised his right hand up. Senpu. Rasen Shuriken. Naruto yelled as he formed a massive orb made out of lava with 4 rotating blades spinning so fast they looked like a circular blade. Naruto threw the massive attack at the fallen angel, who flew away from the attack that was cutting through any mountains that got in the way. Azazel laughed as he formed a large spear of light and used it to intercept the. He never expected Naruto's attack ripped right through his spear. The rapidly approaching attack slammed into him, sending him through several mountaintops before it expanded rapidly. Naruto watched as his attack detonated and created a dome of energy that dwarfed any of the mountains in the area. He was shocked how much larger it was compared to the one he used before during the war, even with the same amount of energy. Naruto slowed down and floated a few feet from the Grigori leader, laid with a smile on his face. His entire body was covered in small cuts. So what did you think? He asked the older man who laughed at the question. What did I think? I think I used my one chance to turn a human into a fallen angel on the perfect guy. He said, laughing, prompting Naruto to laugh as well. I have to admit, I wish I had taken you seriously from the start. You completely caught me off guard with that transformation. But at least I can say you have 12 wings for a reason, and that's without knowing how to use light energy. Azazel said to the blonde, who smiled at the completement. However, he couldn't help but curse the blonde a bit because of the pain he was feeling. He had been shocked how powerful Azazel was. The man wasn't as strong as Kagaya or Madara in his final form, but he was comparable to Madara while he was under the Ito Tensei. You didn't do that bad yourself, Naruto said to the fallen angel as he landed on solid ground. Looking at Azazel, he saw his body covered in burns from the explosion. His shirt had been completely incinerated by the blast, yet he was able to survive. Thanks, he said to the blonde. His entire body stung from the attack he had taken. It felt like millions of needles made out of wind had tried to cut into him. Naruto smiled and placed his hand on his shoulder. Within a few seconds all his burns had been healed completely. If he hadn't just confirmed that from that one attack he was at the level of a Satan, he would have been shocked by the blood's ability to heal. Next time we fight I'll make sure to take you completely seriously. I don't want to feel that again, Azazel said, doing a few stretches. Well, I guess we can stop for a break, then I can train you to fly. Naruto looked at him a bit confused as he started to float once again. Did I hit you too hard? I can already fly, Naruto said questionably. Azazel chuckled, I meant fly with your wings. Unless you plan on transforming every time you need to fly, I suggest you keep that as a last resort. Besides, by the time I'm done with you wouldn't need to use it to kick ass. The semi-blonde man said to the Uzumaki, who smiled and nodded. Hell, he'll probably be able to curb stomp me, Azazel thought to himself as he planned to enjoy the time he had to make the blonde pay. Now back in his base form, Naruto released his black wings like he had done before. It took him a few hours of practice before he was successfully able to get off the ground and remain stable. Azazel was having way too much fun watching Naruto fall down to the ground when he lost stability or crashed. To rub salt on the wound, he also decided that attempting to skewer them with one of his spears would help further the training. This is going to be fun. A middle-aged looking man looked on as two figures flew around at outrageous speeds, clashing with each other. The man was rather gruff looking with black hair, a matching beard, and a muscular body. Huge bursts of wind blew against him as the blurs collided. The two aren't pulling any punches, he said to himself while watching the fast-paced battle. I can't believe that kid is keeping up with Azazel. The two combatants stopped their movement to catch their breaths. The first one was none other than Azazel, who was covered in bruises and his left arm seemed limp. The other one was someone who had taken everyone in the Grigori by surprise. His name was Naruto Uzumaki, and one of the few angels, let alone fallen angels, in the world who had 12 wings. He didn't know where he came from, nor did he know how someone with that level of power had kept himself hidden from everyone for so long. The only person who really knew who he was his leader and friend Azazel, who was also the one who brought him into their faction. Only enough, while Naruto seemed to have the power of a seraph, he had no idea how to use any of his powers. Azazel only told him that he even had to be taught how to fly at first. However, that was 3 months ago, and since then the blonde had learned how to fly like the best of them and was slightly faster than Azazel himself. Even if he could barely make more than one spear of light at the moment, yet he had several jutsu, as he called them, which blew anything he could pull off out of the water. The only people he could compare the boy in terms of power to would be the Seraphs and the Satans of the Devils. The move he had seen the most of had been an orb of energy he called Rasengan. Whenever he had been able to see Naruto fight a stray devil which attacked them, the move was easily able to decimate the body of anything less than a high-level devil. Overall, he knew next to nothing about the boy other than he was always at Azazel's side after he was introduced into the faction and was a decent man. It did bother him that his friend had kept almost all information about their new ally from him, but he knew that for whatever reasons it was for the best at the moment. His watch started beeping. Looking down, he saw that the timer he had set had run to 0. Azazel, time's up, he called out to his friend. The semi-blonde looked over at him and waved him off before forming another spear of light and charging at the younger fallen angel. Naruto also ignored the muscular man in favor of charging at Azazel. Instead of a spear, he formed his own spear in his right hand. The man watched as the two collided with one another one last time. The two attacks fought for supremacy for a few seconds before Azazel's spear broke through Naruto's and stopped at the blonde's throat. I win, Azazel said, smirking as he let his spear disappear and flew a few feet back. You still need to get better control over your light magic, the leader of the Grigori said to the former shinobi, who frowned. He had been trying to gain control over the new energy, but it was just like trying to control his chakra when he was a genin. If I could use chakra I would have won, Naruto mumbled to himself but was heard by Azazel, who laughed a bit. They had agreed that he wouldn't use his chakra in their training since he already had control over it and the training was to get him to use his new powers. Naruto, this is to help you get control over your new body and powers, Azazel said before looking over to see the muscular man flying over to them. Barakiel, what do you think of my young student? He's coming along quite nicely if I must say so myself, he said, laughing as he smiled back at Naruto, who flew over to him. Hey, how are you, Mr. Masochist? Naruto asked, causing his teacher to laugh madly at the nickname the blonde had given his friend. He may or may not have told Naruto a few too many things about some of the other angels. Barakiel's eyes narrowed on the blonde who was enjoying the annoyed look on the fallen angel's face. You told him that? Barakiel asked Azazel, who scratched the back of his head while laughing nervously. Never mind. You're late for your meeting with the leader of the yokai in Kyoto. He said to his leader, who looked a bit annoyed that he had to go to a meeting. Azazel rubbed his chin for a few seconds, trying to figure out how to get out of going to the meeting. Sometimes he hated being the leader of the Grigori. His gaze turned onto Naruto, who was making fun of Barakiel. Then it hit him. Naruto, as part of your training you have to go to this meeting in my place and work out a treaty to stop fighting between some of our more troublesome members and their yokai. Azazel said in a grandiose fashion as he found a way to get out of the meeting. Naruto's neck nearly snapped when he turned at Azazel. What? You just want to get out of doing your job? Naruto accused his teacher, who smirked at him. Barakiel couldn't help but sigh at the way the two acted. He should have known that his old friend would try and pull something like this. Sorry, but you need to learn how to deal with some of the other factions in this world. Azazel said smugly as he justified the reason for passing over his responsibility to his young student. Now get to it. He said to the blonde, who mumbled insults towards the older fallen angel. Naruto flew towards the door of the training area and left Barakiel and Azazel to speak. Do you think that was a good idea? Barakiel questioned his friend. He didn't know or trust the new member of their group as much as Azazel. There were just too many questions floating around him that only Azazel seemed to know the answers to, yet he kept them from him. This is a very sensitive mission, and a misstep could lead to further conflict between some of our men and the yokai. Azazel just waved him off and flew towards the door Naruto had left through. He'll be fine. Trust me when I say that kid could turn even Trihiksa into his friend. Well, maybe that to that extent, but I'm sure he can make a deal with Yasaka. He said as he left the training area with Barakiel behind him. I don't trust him. Barakiel said to his friend, who looked back with a slight frown. I know I haven't told you much about him, but I know he can be trusted. Azazel said to the bearded man, who frowned a bit before accepting the fact that he wouldn't be able to convince the stronger fallen angel. But Naruto, where the fuck is Kyoto? Naruto yelled as he flew over the country called Japan. He had realized after he left that he had no idea where the meeting was to take place. He had been flying around the island country for about 10 minutes and he couldn't tell which city was which. I really should have paid attention when Azazel tried to get me to learn geography. Naruto said in his head. Maybe Sage Mode would help. Naruto said to himself as he stopped to gather some energy from nature. He had learned early on that the energy of this world had some kind of malevolent feel to it, but it didn't hold a candle to how Kurama's chakra used to be, so for him it was easy to ignore. It only took seconds for him to enter his base Sage Mode. Scanning over the area, he tried to find where the strongest yokai was. He had learned early on how to tell apart each faction. It only took him a few moments before he located the strongest yokai near him and hoped that it was indeed Yasaka. The blonde descended from the sky and into an alleyway where he pulled his wings back into his body. He quickly made his way to where the sources of the power was, and he couldn't help but sigh in relief when he found that it was indeed Yasaka sitting in a booth in a tea house. Yasaka was a beautiful young woman with golden blonde hair and a matching set of eyes. She wore a shrine maiden outfit that covered her voluptuous figure from the world. Beside her was a young girl who had the appearance of an elementary school student. She had golden blonde hair that is tied in a ponytail and matching eyes. She also had 9 golden foxtails and matching ears. Yasaka-san, I assume? Naruto asked, using the honorifics since he wasn't dealing with someone like Azazel who didn't care for them much. The blonde woman nodded and smiled at the blonde before looking a bit confused. Noticing her confusion, Naruto connected it with the fact that he wasn't the person she was expecting. Azazel was held up with some business, so he sent me to his place. I hope that isn't a problem. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, by the way. Naruto said as he sat down on the other side of the table. That isn't a problem at all. Yasaka said to the blonde male. True, she was a bit annoyed that the Grigori leader sent a subordinate in his place, but she would take what she could get. While we wait for the tea to come, let's start our discussion. She said, looking more serious than before. Some members of your group have been causing problems in Kyoto. I have lost a few members of my faction to these attacks. I would appreciate it if you and Azazel could find a way to get them to stop. She stated politely yet at the same time sternly. Azazel never gave them an order to attack any member of other factions, including yours. Those that are either taking their liberties too far or are traitors. If you know the location where they are hiding, I would gladly take care of your problem. Naruto said calmly. This was all very unusual for him. He had rarely been put in a spot where one misstep on his part of the negotiations could lead to a war between two factions. It's reassuring to know that these attacks weren't ordered. Some of my men have discovered that they are hiding out in one of the older churches that was abandoned last year due to their presence. If you don't mind me asking, how will you deal with them? The blonde woman asked the blonde who was looking at the 9 tails coming out of the younger girl's back. Simple. I will ask them to leave the city at once. If they refuse, then I will have no other choice but to brand them as traitors and either capture them to be imprisoned or kill them. Yusaka frowned at the mention of killing, but accepted it as long as the members of her group were safe. Now, if you don't mind me asking, is it true that you and your daughter are both 9-tailed foxes? He asked the woman. Yes, it is. Why do you ask? Yusaka asked Naruto, who was about to respond before he felt the young girl climbing up next to him and smelling him. Kunu, what are you doing? It's not polite to smell other people without asking. She tried to scold her daughter. He smells like one of us, Kachan. He smells like a kitsune and other yakai. Kunu said to her mother as she continued sniffing the blonde, who was a bit taken back by the fact that she could tell that he had at one point been connected to a 9-tailed fox. Yusaka was also a bit shocked since she had never expected to find a fallen angel with the scent of one of her own. Naruto laughed nervously and scratched the back of his head. That's actually something that I would rather keep to myself about, he said before looking a bit somber. He hadn't heard a thing from those that were supposed to be inside of him. None of them, not even Kurama, had been in contact with him, yet he could still use all their powers and his 6-path sage mode. Let's just say that I was very close friends with one, he said. Isaka's mind was still on the subject of the man before her being somehow related to another Kyuubi. She was sure that there weren't many, if none other than those in her family. But the way the younger blonde reacted, she could tell that it was a sore subject, so she decided to leave it be for now. Well, that is, but his past is not our place to poke at Kunu, the mother said to her child, who despite this stayed at Naruto's side. Thank you, Yusaka-san. Naruto said to the elder kitsune, who smiled at him. Now, if that's all that we have to discuss, I think I should go ahead and deal with the traitors giving your group a hard time, Naruto said as politely as he possibly could. Isaka laughed a bit at how hard the blonde had been trying to act politely. Why don't you stay for some tea, Naruto-san? I already ordered and I wouldn't want it to go to waste, the mother said to Naruto, who thought for a minute before deciding to stay at least for a bit. After all, it wouldn't hurt to get to know the leader of a faction, would it? Oh, and please stop forcing yourself to act so stiff. Naruto sighed a bit in relief as he relaxed a bit. Thanks. I just didn't want to offend you. I'm not really one for formalities, Naruto said with a small chuckle. So aren't you worried that someone will ask about Kunu-chan's tales? Naruto asked Yusaka, ignoring the pout on the younger kitsune's face. Thank you for your concern for my daughter, but this tea house is owned by another yakai, so it isn't a problem, she answered Naruto's question. If you don't mind me asking, how powerful are you? I heard that angels and fallen angels are classified by how many sets of wings they have. Yusaka asked Naruto, who thought about how he should respond. On one hand, she had asked how many wings he had, which he knew he couldn't keep hidden for long. However, he wasn't going to freely tell everyone about his Rakuto Senin mode. Well, I can't really tell you everything, but at the moment I have 12 wings, Naruto said, much to both Yusaka and Kunu's surprise. There were only a handful of angels that had 12 wings, and even among them only one was a fallen angel, well, until now it seemed. But that would put you on the same level as Satan, she said in awe at the blonde. Even though many angels and devils were really older than they looked, she could tell that the blonde in front of her was the age he looked like. Naruto couldn't help but feel proud of himself, knowing that people seemed to have some sort of respect for his power. I am honored that such a powerful being took the time to help us. He said with a slight bow. It's no problem. After all, I finally got to meet a few people like my old friend, he said, remembering Kurama. He was a kitsune like you, only less polite and not as cute, Naruto said before covering his mouth. Shit, Naruto said to himself. Little known fact was that Azazel's perverseness had rubbed off on Naruto a bit. He wouldn't call himself a pervert, but he would admit to appreciating the female form. Isaka blushed a bit at being called cute but couldn't stop, but giggled a bit when her daughter lightly punched the male blonde. Don't flirt with Kachan, Kunu said to the blonde, who laughed a bit before an elderly man holding a tray with a few filled teacups walked over and placed the tray on the table. Ah, Yusaka-sama, it's always a pleasure here, the old man said before turning to the former shinobi, observing as the man took a few curious sniffs at the air around him. Kitsune? He asked himself curiously. No fallen angel, the man said before he started listing all the creatures Naruto's scent reminded him of. Nekomata? He asked before looking Naruto in the eye. What are you? He asked. Naruto tried to maintain a nervous smile. I'm a fallen angel. Then why do you reek of yakai? The old man yelled at the blonde before turning to Yusaka to see her blushing lightly, then at Kunu, who was sitting next to the blonde man. Ah, you're Kunu's father, he accused before hitting Naruto over the head with a wooden spoon. How dare you leave Yusaka by herself to raise a child? He yelled at the blonde who couldn't help but was a bit confused by the accusations. Before he could say anything else to Naruto, Yusaka spoke up. Please calm down Jai-san, Naruto-san isn't Kunu's father. This is actually the first time we've met. The yokai leader tried to calm down the angered old man who looked over at her before putting away the wooden spoon and walking away, but not before throwing one last glare at Naruto. I'm sorry, but he's very protective of other yokai, she said with a small laugh. If you don't mind me asking what happened to Kunu's father. I assume he was a kitsune as well. Naruto asked. He immediately regretted it when he saw the saddened look on Yusaka's face. He may have been a little dense, but even he knew some things were too personal. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Naruto said, taking back his question. I prefer not to talk about it. Let's just say he's out of my life. She said venomously at the mention of the man who sired her daughter. Even Kunuo looked a bit down from the thought of her father. The 12-winged angel couldn't help but feel bad. He may have expected them to be a little negative about the man, considering how the other man talked about him, but even then he never expected her to change so drastically. Not knowing what to say, Naruto picked up one of the teacups and started drinking an unisant with a blonde woman. I just had to open my big mouth. Naruto scolded himself in his head. What would Azazel do at this point? Have sex with her? An imaginary chibi, Azazel said in his head. Never mind. Naruto deadpanned. Worst thing was that he was sure that was exactly what the older fallen angel would tell him to do. Damn pervert. He cursed. Looking up, he saw that Yusaka had finished her tea while he was in his own little world. After you deal with the fallen angels, I invite you to stay the night in the temple I run. It's the least I could do for your service. She said, smiling at him. It was then that Naruto decided for the first time to use his empathic powers to see how she was feeling. It only made him feel worse, as he felt that under the smile she had on was a deep sadness. What have I done? Naruto said to himself in thought before smiling at the blonde yokai. Thank you for your offer. I think I'll take you up on that. Naruto said before standing up. I have to go take care of those traitors before they cause any more problems. I'll find you after I'm done. He said to Yusaka, who nodded and watched him walk to the door before he stopped and waved before exiting. After Naruto left, Yusaka's smile fell a bit as the old man walked over to her and gave her a comforting pat on the shoulder. But Naruto, the blonde fallen angel, quickly took to the sky as he flew over to the church where his targets hid. His eyes narrowed as he used his sage mode to sense how many were in there. He felt at least 10 former Grigori members and even a few humans that seemed to be helping them. Well, time to do this. Naruto said to himself before flying through a cracked window made of stained glass. Everyone inside turned to see Naruto land in the middle of the room. The blonde couldn't help but gag a bit at the sight of all the head yokai bodies. Blood stained everything from the floors to the ceiling. The apparent leader of the group walk now stood in front of him. Well, if it isn't Azazel's little bitch. I never expected that bastard pacifist to actually send someone to hunt us. Too bad it's just one runt. The traitor said to Naruto, who narrowed his eyes on him. All around them the remaining fallen angels and humans formed a circle around the blonde. This is your last chance. Come with me peacefully and face your punishment or die here and now. Naruto threatened them. The man only laughed before pointing at him, which signaled his group to attack. You asked for it. Naruto said as he created an orange spear of light and drove it through one of the humans. One of the fallen angels flew towards him from behind, only to have her nose broken, but Naruto, when he pulled his spear out of the human's cut, hitting her with the butt of the spear. Naruto spun around and used the spear to spear her up the throat and into her brain. More and more angels tried to assault him, but all were met with nothing but death. The leader was a bit unnerved now that he saw how the man he called Azazel's bitch was now killing his men like it was going out of fashion, and all with one spear. They couldn't even touch him with any of their attacks. Before he knew it, he was the last one left alive, not counting the man who had killed all his subordinates. Damn you to hell. He yelled as he revealed his 3 sets of wings and flew at the blonde, who scowled. Naruto easily dodged the traitor's sloppy attack and hit him in the left temple with a twirl of his spear. The man went flying into the back of the church. As he stood up, he looked up to see Naruto throw the spear at him. He attempted to dodge the attack, however Naruto's attack was far faster than his reaction time. The blonde frowned as he looked at the man who was now stuck to the wall thanks to his spear. He never liked killing, but he knew that some people or creatures needed to die for peace to exist. It was the sad truth he learned during the war, and even now he is still learning. Now that this is over with what Naruto said before walking out of the church. I get a vacation day. He yelled before flying off, hoping to get the memory of the church out of his head. Later that night, Naruto sighed as he sunk into the warm waters of the hot spring. After months of training, he finally had a day to relax a bit. Leaning against one of the rocks that made up the border of the hot spring, he could almost fall asleep. Can you use Senjutsu Naya? Naruto's eyes snapped open as he jumped back away from whoever had spoken. Looking at the speaker, he saw a woman who matched or even surpassed Yasaka in terms of beauty. She was a young woman with a curvy figure and long black hair with split bangs. Her eyes were a shade of hazel with cat-like pupils. Her attire consisted of a black kimono, a yellow obi, a set of golden beads, and an ornately detailed headband. The kimono featured a red interior and it is opened at her shoulders, giving view to her large breasts. Naruto blushed a bit at the fact that he was only wearing a towel, but still kept the discipline of a shinobi. "Who are you?" Naruto asked the mysterious woman who had appeared without him noticing. The fact that she was able to get past his senses was very impressive in his mind. "My name is Kuroka." She introduced herself as she walked towards Naruto, who aimed his arm at her. The raven-haired beauty stopped her advances when she saw the top of Naruto's hand raised to reveal a hidden weapon. "Why so serious? I just wanted to ask you a few questions." She tried to get the blonde to lower his weapon. If the weapon was what she thought it was, she knew she wouldn't want to stay on the end of the barrel she was on. "Depends what you want to ask," Naruto said to the woman. "Before I answer anything, you're going to tell me why you're here," Naruto said as he let out his wings to try and intimidate the woman. This seemed to have the opposite effect, however, as the woman simply smiled at him. "Well, I was wandering around the city when I felt someone using senjutsu. Naturally, only extremely powerful yokai could use it, Naya," she said as she walked closer to Naruto, who never took his eyes off her. "Imagine my surprise when I found out that the man wasn't a yokai, but a fallen angel." "How do you know what I can use?" Naruto asked her. In his mind, however, he was slowly recalling a memory from one of Azazel's lessons about the other creatures in this world. However, learning such medical things was never his strong suit. If anything, it reminded him of the academy. "Teach him a new attack. He'll learn it in a week. Make him sit through a lecture." "No." The woman smirked a bit. "Because I can use senjutsu too," she said, winking at the blonde, who raised an eyebrow at her statement. Yeah, he knew that some in this world could use it, but from what Azazel told him, it was only a handful of yokai who knew how to do so because of malice in the world. "But back to what I was saying, once I found you using my and being up close, I can even feel and even smell some Nekomata in you. I guess you can say that I'm very interested in you, Naruto," she said, leaning forward, giving the blonde a better view of her cleavage. "I remember now. You're the stray devil Kuroka. Apparently you killed your master when drunk with power," Naruto said as he finally remembered the lecture on stray devils. He didn't remember much, only that she was very powerful and dangerous. "That's me. You still haven't told me what you want with me," Naruto said, lowering his arm cannon as he could confirm that she had no ill intentions towards him, but he did feel something he felt from some of the female fallen angels, but he wasn't sure exactly what it was. "I doubt a devil, especially a stray devil, would willingly walk up to a fallen angel just for a chat," Naruto said to the busty catwoman who walked up and pressed her body into his. "I want powerful babies to revive my species," she told him bluntly, which caused Naruto's jaw to drop before he used a quick substitution to get away. "Oh, come on," she said, pouting at him. "Sorry lady, but I'm not ready to have kids with anyone, especially a woman I just met." Naruto's response was that he crossed his arms. The woman only smiled even more and walked over to him, swaying her hips in an attempt to captivate him. Be it the fallen angel in him or the fact that every teacher he had been a massive pervert, he couldn't help but follow with his eyes. "And should you really be asking a fallen angel to help you? Why not another yokai?" Naruto asked her. Kuroka giggled a bit at the question. "That's because I want to have the strongest children I can. And no yokai can compare to the power I sense from you," she said as she jumped onto him and gave him a small lick on the cheek. "So what do you say?" "I'm flattered, but I don't think it's a good idea having a kid with someone you just met," Naruto said before substituting himself with a wooden bucket. Kuroka frowned and threw the bucket out from under her. "Sorry, but like I said, if I'm going to have a child, it's with someone I know and love. Not some random catgirl who wants me for my sperm," Naruto elaborated. He really didn't feel like being used as a sperm bank. Besides, what would happen if he had a kid with his brand of chakra? Just look what his world had done with it. "Oh?" she said sadly before her head perked up. "Well, maybe I could get to know you better," she said, getting closer to him. "What do you say?" she asked him as she stopped a few away from him. He quickly checked her again to see if she had any ulterior motives, which he strangely found none. It seemed she really wanted to revive her race and wanted him to help her do it. "Do it?" The chibi Azazel in his head screamed at him. Next to the miniature Azazel was Kakashi and Jiraiya holding up a banner telling him to accept the date. Naruto sighed, stupid perverted senses. He muttered to himself before deciding on what he should do about the offer he was just given. He couldn't deny that she was extremely good looking and she seemed to be fun to be around if the way she acted was any indication. "Fine. But I'm not having kids or sex with you until I at least get to know you," Naruto said, much to her joy. Yay. Naruto watched as the woman cheered. I finally took the first step to reviving my race. Naruto smiled but then heard what she said. Oi, I never agreed to help you with it yet. He yelled before he felt a smaller hand wrap around his own and pull him out of the hot springs. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time, till then sayonara.